Hello, everybody. This is Christoforou with the Duran, and I'm here with the Duran's editor-in-chief, Alexander Mercouris. And we're going to
Hello, Alex.
Hello, Alexander. And we're going to break down this week's news. And our first topic is probably the hottest topic, breaking from last week and moving into this week as well. And that's Trump's pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal. So, Alexander, why don't you give us a little backstory to how Trump arrived at that decision, and then lead us into the implications of his decision to pull out of the Iran deal.
Right. How he arrived at this is that he has always taken a very strongly pro-Israel, anti-Iran position. He was doing that during the election. He said he would pull out of the deal. A lot of people didn't think he would do it, but he's done it. He's always said that from his point of view, it was a bad deal. It didn't restrain Iran in all sorts of ways that he said it should have done. It allowed Iran to pursue its foreign policy, which he doesn't agree with in the Middle East, which he sees as anti-Israeli. He also thinks that it strengthened the Iranian government by giving it money, which was once frozen, but which the Obama administration released to Iran, and that the Iranian government used that money to promote this foreign policy that he doesn't like. So that's why he did it. Now, he did it in ways that I think stunned many people. He was asked by his European allies not to do it. It seems that General Mattis, his defense secretary, told him not to do it. He not only did it, but he did it in the most extreme way, saying that he was going to reimpose the maximum sanctions upon Iran that had been there before, even though he is doing that on his own, without the approval of the UN Security Council, and a lot of people are saying that's not legal. So we've come to this position, we've come to it very fast, faster than anybody imagined, and it's been done in a total way.
How much influence, Alexander, did John Bolton and Pompeo have on Trump making this decision, or had he already come to the conclusion that he was going to pull out of the JCPOA, given the influence that characters like his son-in-law Kushner, who's very close to Netanyahu, and other people in his administration, were pushing for him to pull out of this deal long before Pompeo and Bolton either came on board or were switched from the CIA to the Secretary of State position?
I think you're absolutely right, actually. I think it was, in fact, Donald Trump who made this decision on his own. Now, he was talking about this during the election, and the thing to understand about Donald Trump is that when he says he's going to do something, he means it. He is not someone who says things he doesn't mean. Now, it doesn't sometimes mean that he changes. It doesn't mean he never changes his mind. But on this, he's been absolutely clear and consistent, and he's done what he always said he was going to do. He wanted to do it last year. He ran into all sorts of opposition from the bureaucracy, from people like General Mattis, from people like General McMaster, his previous national security advisor, from his former Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson. He's now got rid of McMaster. He's got rid of Tillerson. He's brought people like Bolton and Pompeo who support the position he already had. And that's opened up the way for him to do it, and he's done it. But the decision, let us be very clear, was his.
So I guess the question that I have on my mind, and it kind of plays into the mainstream media and how they portray Trump. On the one hand, they portray him as a buffoon type of, reality TV show character. On the other hand, they portray him as some calculating, evil type of autocrat. The question becomes, how knowledgeable do you think Trump really is as to the foreign policy decisions, especially one with so many implications like the Iran nuclear deal? How knowledgeable do you think Trump really is about the decisions he takes and what they mean going forward, especially in a region like the Middle East, which is already very, very tense, given what's happening in Syria, what happened in Libya, and so forth?
I think the trouble is that Donald Trump has far less knowledge than he thinks he does. I think he listens to a lot of people around him. He listens to people like Prime Minister Netanyahu, to Jared Kushner, undoubtedly. I think Jared Kushner has been a major influence here. And I think he thinks that he has a much better understanding of the situation in the Middle East, and he really does. And I think this is the point about Donald Trump. I don't think this is a buffoon at all. I don't think he's any kind of buffoon. I don't think he is. I don't think either he is a very calculating man. I think he works on impulse. I think he does what he thinks is right. I don't think he has any doubt at all that he is taking the right decision now, the decision that is in the interests of the US, and he's taking it on the basis of the information which he is given. But he is not a Middle East expert. The people who have been advising him are highly partisan in their views. He is following very widespread views within his own electoral base in the United States. We've got to be clear about this. Most people in America who vote for Donald Trump agree with what he has just done. And from their point of view, it is politically highly intelligent. I think, however, that for the Middle East, it will turn out that it is a more complicated thing than he understands, and he's looking further down the line. It's very easy to see how it could all go horribly wrong.
Well, I mean, this was, going back to what you said, this was a campaign promise of his. So would you say that even though he did it in a very shocking way, should the international community, especially the European partners involved in the JCPOA and Russia and China, should they have been so surprised at what he did, or are they more surprised in the manner he did it and the timing that he did it?
Yeah, I think the answer is that they're surprised about both. I think they got themselves into this position last year when they thought that because he was opposed by people like Kelly and Mattis and McMaster and the rest and Tillerson, that he wouldn't do it. And now, to their horror, they find that he is doing it. But I think what has really shocked them is the way he's done it. I mean, he had all of them. I mean, Macron, Merkel, Boris Johnson, Theresa May, they were all calling him, visiting him, talking to him, and he played them along. I mean, he just strung them along. And not only did he not listen to them, but he said to them, this is my decision. I'm going to enforce it. I'm going to enforce it on you. That means that if your companies now start trading with Iran, you're going to be sanctioned also. And that, I think, has shocked them because it's shown to them exactly what he thinks of them, which frankly isn't very much. And I think that's been absolutely something they didn't expect and they didn't prepare for. As for the Russians and the Chinese, I think they're in a different ball game entirely. I don't think the Russians have many contacts with Donald Trump. I don't think they really understand his mind very well. And I think that the same applies to an equal extent to the Chinese as well. So I think that we've got to separate them. I don't think they have the same kind of expectations or the same perspectives. But the Europeans were taken completely by surprise and they were completely shocked. Can I just finish on this by saying if you really want to get a sense of what the Europeans feel, one place to go is Der Spiegel, which is a German news magazine. It also writes in English. There is a very long article there which clearly comes from people at the highest level of the German government, and it talks about their utter shock at what has happened and their absolute amazement that Donald Trump did this thing.
So, John Bolton, you're referring to the sanctions of European companies and people that work and companies that work with Iran. That message was delivered by John Bolton. And so I've got two simple questions. What's Europe going to do now? Are they going to fold to the U.S.'s wishes, or will they actually grow a backbone and maybe stand up to Trump, especially given the fact that the Europeans, unlike Obama, the European leaders are not entirely fond of Trump, the person. So will they break away or even start to hint at breaking away from U.S. foreign policy? That's the first question. And the second question is, what will Russia and China do in a practical sense?
Right, let's go to Europe first, because I think there's an awful lot of illusions about this at the moment. I think there's been a lot of talk, and there's been a lot of talk in Europe itself amongst some of the European leaders about them standing up to Trump, not going along with this. Macron is talking about trying to save the JCPOA. Merkel is talking about Europe looking after itself and no longer relying on the US. That may all happen in the long term, or perhaps not the so long term. In the immediate term, they will do exactly what the US tells them to do. I think anybody who thinks otherwise is simply not understanding the current power balance and the current economic realities. European companies are not going to risk sanctions by trading with Iran, and the European governments are not going to do anything that will make those companies, those European companies, change their minds. They do not have the will or the strength or the power at this moment in time to defy the US. Maybe over time they can start to create their own systems that will do that. But we're looking at something that could only happen 5, 10 years away, not now.
Trump knows this.
As for what the Russian... Yes.
Trump knows this.
Sorry?
Trump knows this.
Yes. Yes, Trump knows absolutely. He made that absolutely clear when he met the Europeans. As I said, that's why he played them along. Bolton knows it too. I mean, Bolton famously once turned up at the Security Council and said, I think there should be only one permanent member here because we're the people who have the power. You don't. Now, Russia and China have a certain amount of power. The Europeans have none. And the US and Donald Trump certainly knows. I think that's a point, actually, to make about Donald Trump. It's certainly true about John Bolton, but Trump understands power. He may not understand diplomacy. He may not be a sophisticated man, but he knows that he's got the leverage in this situation, and he's going to use it. And he's made this very clear. This is something that he cares about, and he will enforce his will, and the Europeans will knuckle down and will do what he says. So I don't think there's any doubt about that. Coming to the Russians and the Chinese, they're looking at a different ballgame. The Russians have been sanctioned already. They've shown that they can endure sanctions. They have a big Middle East play of their own. Iran has a part to play in it. I think they will trade with Iran, and they will try and help Iran to a certain extent. I don't think they want to overcommit to Iran because I don't think that's the way Russia works. But I think they will still work with Iran, and I think they will undermine the sanctions to a certain extent. I think the same is true of the Chinese. I don't think there's any possibility of that happening with the Europeans, and I think people need to be realistic about that too. As to what Iran can do, Iran can actually do quite a lot. It's got a lot of resources. It's a rich country if it wants to be. It's been not very well managed up till now. They've got to get their own act together and start to sort that out. And I think they've got to also accept that for the time being, if they're going to trade with anybody, it has to be with people like the Chinese and the Russians.
Alexander, thank you very much for your insight on Trump and his decision to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal. For everyone watching this, our first interview here at the Duran with myself, Alex Christoforou, and Editor-in-Chief Alexander Mercouris. Stay tuned. We're going to punch out a video about Israel, the Gaza Strip, and the U.S. Embassy opening in Jerusalem. For now, everyone, subscribe by clicking that red button below. Remember to also click the notifications bell so you can get notifications when we do publish a new video. And also visit drnshop.com to buy really nice t-shirts. We also have retro posters and all kinds of other products and merchandise that help the Duran. For now, take care, everybody, and stay tuned for the next video that we're going to be publishing shortly.